The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Greetings, Earthlings and aliens that are terrestrial and non-terrestrial. Welcome to the second hour of the John Lebang Show. And as we covered in the first hour, we talked about the Donald Trump press conference that he had this past week, and we talked about Russia. And I think we're going to get a little bit more into the Russia thing as the second hour progresses. Before I even get into that, I wanted to start a little new segment here on the show, asking you guys questions at the top of every hour, and then having you guys chime in as I talk about these subjects, as I get into the minutia of why I even asked the questions in the first place. So let's ask these questions for this hour, and if you guys are inclined, please join in. Let me know what you think. Give me your opinions, and we'll go from there. This hour's first question is: before the human race existed, what caused the global temperature fluctuation that caused the ice ages and the tropical periods? Feel free to chime in on that one. Of course, these are going to be related to what we're going to be talking about in this second hour. The second question is: why should the United States oppose Russian aggression when the White House performed their own forms of aggression across the Middle East and the rest of the world? And finally, are the producers of self-motivation obligated to entertain the unmotivated? So I had a little discussion with a gentleman that I've known for a few years. We used to enjoy coffee together down at this local coffee shop that has closed since, but that's where we met, and we would sit down and discuss, different topics and such. And he's formed or started a energy company, and he does a lot of posts on Facebook, and he invited me to his page, and of course I'm inclined to go see what this is about, because I'm interested in future energy means. I'm a little different than most, and this is where I want to get into, because this gentleman, who is actually an energy researcher, he believes that the current model, basically energy producers sell to the energy consumers, and that's a mutual relationship that develops technology and growth in the energy sector, so then they can transfer means of energy, the forms of energy, to the energy consumers. I, on the other hand, believe that we shouldn't have these. We should move away from these companies that constantly provide energy. Instead, I believe we should be self-sufficient in our own right. So let's pretend you own a home, which many of us do. I think that we should be able to have machines, energy producing items that are on your property to allow you to be self-sufficient, and you don't have to continually buy product from a energy producer. That allows you to have some freedom, some independence from them. The only thing you'll have to purchase is the initial units to produce the energy to make you energy independent, and then of course the maintenance that would directly come from those. This gentleman, he's of the old mindset. He's just trying to develop new ways of energy, but it's still the old mindset where there's an energy company that produces the energy for you and then sells it to you. Here you go. To me, that's like a drug dealer. And I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of dependency. And that's what this gentleman is offering. And his position is, well, if we're producing this, it's not a bad thing to make a profit. I'm like, well, no, it's not a bad thing to make a profit. My problem is you're making a profit by making people dependent on you. They have to come to you directly. You. We have to get our energy from you. We have to give our life's blood from you. And I believe that they should produce a product at a profit that I can plug into my house, and it can collect solar energy, it can collect wind energy. When we're constantly, like we are today here, at least in Detroit, where we're dependent on DTE energy to provide our energy, we're at the mercy of them. Whatever they want to charge for that energy, I have to pay it, or else they shut me off. That's no different than a drug dealer. If you have to continually go back to somebody for the same item just to survive a renewable type situation where I run out, I have to go back. I run out and I have to go back. Run out and I have to go back. That makes the person who's the consumer dependent on the supplier, and that supplier will eventually keep raising the rates. And a person like this gentleman who thinks he's doing a great thing by finding new forms of green energy that he can provide to people. And he was boasting about the projects he had done in Africa where they had some solar panels and now they're selling it off to people, the energy. And same with, I think it was in Oregon or Seattle, I'm not sure, but they're providing the energy, which makes them a dealer. And when somebody's dependent on it, you get hooked. And then here's the key to it all. These energy providers, be it the old world energy providers with the oil and the natural gas, or the new world energy providers with the solar and the wind and all that, doesn't matter. They all act like drug dealers. And I'm a proponent of not having that. Why can't we develop stuff to make people independent and not dependent? Because the profit is much larger, and that's the real key, ladies and gentlemen. The profit is much larger in keeping you hooked on their product than curing the actual issue, and that is energy independence for each person. They talk about energy independence for the country, but to have true freedom, you need energy independence for each individual person. Same with food independence. But they don't teach you how to grow food, do they? They don't teach you how to harvest seeds so that you can have food for free for the rest of your life, do they? No, they teach you to go get a job, keep you dependent on a system, and then you can go down to the grocery store and buy the food you want, because and half of it's already made for you, and all you got to do is stick it in the microwave. Because it's easier that way, right? It's easier to be dependent on a company, a corporation, a system, than it is to be independent. That's what they want us to believe. But what that does, that actually takes more time out of your life, and it donates it to the people who make all the money from it. You'd be much better off, my opinion, again, you'd be much better off if you learned all your little traits there on how to grow your own food and how to hunt or whatever, somehow to feed yourself, how to find water or how to collect water. There are ways of doing it, and you can collect it right out of the air, ladies and gentlemen. It's not that hard. You can buy That's right. You can buy a product that will allow you to suck the water out of the air. And then you can have free water. And all you have to do is buy the product. Now, if you can have a product that can suck the water out of the air, the moisture out of the air, and allow you to drink that water, then why can't we develop and we do, they're called solar panels, they're called windmills, they're called, hydroelectric stuff, but they don't make those cheap enough and readily available because the energy companies, the ones that control everything on that end of the spectrum, on our energy spectrum, want us dependent on their drug, and that's energy. And our governments, obviously, especially the United States government, obviously would rather be in bed with these corporations, developing more ways to get energy out to all of us, because as this gentleman, how did he put this? He put this in a certain way that, right, here goes. Profit is not a four-letter word. It is the means for growth and to expand for the greater good. And that's the funny little twist of words there, in my opinion. The greater good. That means we have to be sheeple into a system instead of saying the individual's good, because that means everybody's taken care of, because all of us are individuals. When they talk about the greater good, that is the majority. See, this guy's a socialist. Most corporatists are. Most people who want to produce something to get you hooked, like the drug companies like Pfizer, they don't ever produce a cancer killing drug, which you pop it in your mouth and no way you can get cancer ever again. They're never going to find the cure, or if they do, it's going to be years down the road. Although there are some things out there suggesting they already have the cure. We already have the cure for energy, but the governments don't push it. We probably have a cure for cancer. Most likely we do. But they're suppressing it because they want everybody dependent on the system. If you don't have to go to the doctor because you don't have cancer and you're not sick anymore, what good's a doctor? What good's the pharmaceutical company? What good is the whole medical field? Instead, they make you take an insurance plan forced by the government. It's a silly little game they play, and we fall into it. And the producers of energy are a big part of it. And we as individuals have to not want to be dependent on an energy company. We should try to move towards and make our government really make legislation towards us being individually energy independent. Not our country energy independent, because we will be energy independent if we are each individually energy independent. And that means products that we can buy and take home, and it can produce energy for us, not that we have to buy a constant stream of product from a company. That's being a dealer. That's being addicted. If you're addicted to drugs, that's a sickness, right? We have an energy sickness in this country. And until we can become energy independent individually, we will always have this sickness. Anyways, folks, look at that. Up against the time again, running late. Please check out our sponsors. Support them because they support us. And on the flip side, we're going to talk about a little bit more of what's going on with the Russian ordeal and Syria. Stay tuned.
Don't touch that dial. The John Lebang Show will be right back.
You can bet on it, man.
Powerful, epic music by Toothbox Roll. Life-changing lyrics come in every style, empowering humanity to finally unlock the chains of bondage. experience the edgy side of positive music and rock your world today. From Primal to Divine, available now at sassyalternativemusic.com.
Ladies, it doesn't matter if it's morning, noon, or night. Whether you've worked all day or you just woke up. If you got the thirst, just wet your lips on a BJ. BJ Beer, brewed right here in the great state of Michigan. Who wants a BJ? You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Join the radio revolution right here.
It's better than some good Thai stick, man.
Yes, I would like some too. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to touch on a couple things before I move on to this other stuff here. The reason I was on to the energy thing is this guy was also talking about how we destroyed 50% of the world's woodlands. Half the forests are gone, and how, and he's basically pushing the global warming climate agenda. Again, of course, he's not talking about how the people behind it, the most prominent people behind the global warming agenda, the very most prominent people, that would be like Barack Hussein Obama, right? Of course, that's Barack Hussein Obama, and that's Al Gore. And what do? They fly all around the world, and they put out more pollution, more carbon emissions than most of any other person that they would do in the rest of their lives. They do it in 1 or 2 shots. And these people are supposed to be credible when they're talking about global warming and how it's affecting the rest of us. I don't think so. I also brought up the fact that we are in a current ice age. By definition, we are in an interglacial period, the Holocene, of an ice age that began 2.6 million years ago at the start of the Pliocene epoch, because of the Greenland, Arctic, and Antarctic ice sheets still exist. Okay? So that's what an ice age is. So when ice exists on the planet, you're in an ice age. Okay? And we're talking about when big sheets of ice exist on the planet. Not just, cubes of ice in your refrigerator. So we're in an ice age, and that interglacial period that I read there, that means we're in a warming period inside of that cooling period called an ice age. And that goes up and down. All right. It used to, see, now you have to type in name of current ice age to actually get the actual ice age name, because for some reason Google now, when you search it out, it has changed over the last few weeks, which is so darn interesting. I don't want to take credit for that. I mean, I've been directing people on my Facebook page to go look that up. We heard a lot about the global warming during the holidays there again, and the climate change. So I wanted people to inform themselves. I says, go on to Google and just type in current ice age. Well, now it's changed. They give you the by definition instead of actually telling you what the current ice age is, which we've covered on the show many times. And I'm sorry, I'm fiddling around my stack of stuff here. Because I want to get to some of my notes here. So the reason climate change movement is a fraud, like I said, is the biggest voices go out and spew all this other energy. The current ice age is called the Pliocene Quaternary Glaciation, and it started about 2.58 million years ago. That's right. That's why it's called an age, a time period, a long period of time. You didn't know that, though. You didn't know that because they don't teach you that in school. They teach you we're having global warming, but they don't teach you why we're having global warming. They're saying it's man's fault when it's actually because we're in a natural interglacial period. That's right. It's a natural thing. And that goes back to our original question. The first question. Before the human race existed, what caused the global temperature to fluctuate that made it possible for the ice age and the tropical periods to happen? because mankind didn't exist back then. So mankind couldn't have been the reason for any warming or cooling. And when you find that out, ladies and gentlemen, you'll actually find out why we go through our cycles here on the planet and why we're in the current cycle we are. Speaking of weather, though, we're looking at some nice weather coming up, and don't forget, I was the one who told you back in November that we were going to have a mild second half to the winter. You can go back, I think it's the episode 188, and I was speaking of that in advance, and look at that. Here, and I said about the second, third week of January, and here we are, marching in, and we're not doing too bad right here in the eastern part of the United States. So, look at that. I've already went on extra long on that global warming and energy stuff. We've got some big news adding on to the whole Syrian thing and the Russian thing. And it's that there are reports, and Syria is going to the United Nations claiming that Israel has attacked them, has launched rockets at least once, but there are at least 3 different separate incidences over the last month or so that they're trying to bring up, saying that Israel had launched against them. And that's another added element to the whole buildup of what's going on. Countries are going to now start seeing the destabilization happen. And that's why we're seeing the buildups. These countries are in the region there. These countries are very weak. Syria's on the has been on the brink. If Russia wouldn't have came in, Syria might have fallen by now. But Russia has helped support the Assad regime and held them in place while they wiped out some of the rebel groups and put those terrorist groups like ISIS on the run. Then we see the buildup of NATO forces, the U.S. sending troops there. This is all part of a larger global, I should say, geopolitical chess game being played. And little countries are going to start taking advantage of countries that, they don't like. It's not going to get easier because we just had China. They're talking about they want to exclude the U.S. from the New World Order now, of course, because that's Trump's in office. But, they could all be playing a game on us. We don't know. Russia sending more troops in the area. We have the United States and NATO sending more troops. Syria's at the heart of all this. Ukraine is I guess we sent more troops to Ukraine now. It's a buildup. And usually when these things happen, one little mistake, one little error, and it could set off a massive war. And I know the people of America don't want that. And I've heard different opinions on what we should do about Syria and what we should do about this Russian, the hacking and the Russian aggression and stuff. We've been aggressive throughout the Middle East since the early 2000s. Right after 9/11, we've been extremely aggressive in the Middle East. Why are we opposed to Russian aggression if there is Russian aggression? I'm not entirely sure there's actual Russian aggression. I'm seeing a lot of bolstering of their borders because it looks like, if you take it from the Russian perspective, you see the West funding terrorist groups, and now that they've been, and this is Russia, now that they've been deep into the Syrian thing and these terrorists, I'm sure they've gotten prisoners and they've had to interrogate them, and they've found out some information, and they probably have found things like U.S. weapons in the hands of terrorists, and they're starting to realize, if they didn't know it before, that, well, maybe the Americans are behind this terrorist group. And I'm not talking about me as an American. I'm talking about the United States government, the one run by Barack Hussein Obama and his little minions and the establishment GOP that seems to follow along suit. Paul Ryan, we had John Bonner before that, we have Mitch McConnell, we have John McCain, and they're all walking us towards another war. And with the development of Israel possibly bombing Syria, adds a little cog into that, because Syria is this focal point. And now with Israel interjecting themselves inside in a military fashion, that's going to put Moscow in a bit of a bind, because Israel has been shunned by the Obama administration, so they've been reaching out to Moscow and Putin for a little while now, trying to be friends with them. And if these reports are true, which it looks like it's very possible that we're looking at Israel now involving themselves in the Syrian conflict publicly, the closer we get to the inauguration, the hairier things are getting and the scarier things are looking. And I'm hoping that we can get to the inauguration, because I don't know if we're going to make it there at this rate. At any moment, something could get triggered and boom, the whole thing goes off, and we're talking about full-blown war, if not thermonuclear, in a matter of minutes, all because if the United States messing around in the Middle East, it has triggered all this. All this. Because if we don't mess around in the Middle East, Russia doesn't have to ever come in to deal with ISIS, because ISIS doesn't exist, because we didn't take out Saddam Hussein and then leave Iraq, allowing a vacuum for ISIS to grow. This is all because of the meddling of the United States, and then after meddling in it, we decided we didn't want to do anything. We didn't want it anymore, and we took off. So we did the irresponsible thing in the first place, and then to top it off, we did it another irresponsible thing as a country. We're just rolling. We're just doing, the world a great favor. And if we don't do any of this, Russia doesn't have to step in against ISIS, which then means we don't have to oppose Russia. Isn't that odd that I say that, folks? I want you to think about it. Russia's in there taking out ISIS. They're in Syria, and we're mad at them for that. We can, the government can say that they're, trying to take out Assad, but so is ISIS. And if you're taking out the rebel groups that are taking out or trying to take out the government of Syria, and you're mad at, that's ISIS. And we're mad at Russia for that. Makes you think whose side we're on.
Don't go anywhere. The John Lebang Show will be right back. Don't be a fool. If you're getting married soon and you need good entertainment, you need to contact John Lebang. He's got 30 years of experience of wedding entertainment under his belt, and there is no one better and no one cheaper. He's running a special to the end of the year, $500 for your wedding if you book now. Contact John Lebang by email at jlebang@live.com or go to his website. That's www.jlebang.com.
Fans, do you need a video for your brand new song but don't have a lot of money? Then contact John Lebang. His reasonable rates, professional look, and fast turnarounds will help get that song off the ground. Contact him at jlebang.com.
Hey man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
Forces of darkness, the treasonable minds who collaborate, must, can, and will be wiped from the face of the earth.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we are rolling through our second hour here in the first week back after the big break, and we're rolling along. Time's just flying on by. A little thing, we're going to get into some more personal things this year, people-wise. Maybe not more personal into my life, but just my observation of people and their personalities and how they deal with life and how they treat others and those sort of things. And I want to talk about friends who really have nothing to do with themselves. They really aren't very creative, and if they're not working, they've got nothing to do with their lives. And there's a lot of people like this, and they seem to want to be more socially connected to people because their life in general has no real that special thing in your life that takes up time that you want to dedicate it to. And I'm talking something beyond family and your children and stuff, and beyond work. It's a lot of people will call it a hobby. A lot of people will call it a second profession. A lot of people will call it a passion. Whatever it is for the person who is motivated to do something. And it's, of course, it's different for everyone. But the person who's motivated to do something, that person doesn't have the amount of downtime as a person who is, let's say, not motivated, or who doesn't have the creativity to occupy their own time. And those people are more socially dependent. They need things to pass their day, to help time go by, while other people who are more, let's say, creative, more independently driven, those people tend to not have enough hours in the day to do all the stuff they've wanted to do. So on one hand, we have people who have too much time on their hands because they have no extracurricular activities to keep them busy. So time, therefore, slows down. It's like, let's pretend the closer you get to the floor, the more time slows down, and the more you stand up, the higher you go, the faster time goes. We'll just use that as a premise. These people who are non-creative, who can't find things to occupy their time, those are the people closer to the floor, and that's where time slows down. And that's because they don't have something to occupy their time, and those people get restless, and they want to spend time with others and do things with others, because at least that is something that passes time, and they actually get to pass time with somebody else. So instead of sitting there in their own thoughts, sitting there in a 4-room wall with nothing to do except maybe throw on a television show or whatever, they get to go hang out with their friends. And that way they get to pass their time and enjoy themselves. And that's how they find enjoyment. While people who are more creative tend to be introverted, and they tend to not need the attention of others as much because they have ways of occupying their own time. Creative, maybe they work. Everybody's a little different. Some people are artists, so they paint. Other people are writers, so they make books or they write stories or whatever. Even musicians, right? They write songs. And some people don't have those talents. Now, some people take that and they work out and they shift themselves into building their body, and that's a good way to occupy your time, and that speeds up a day when you're working out and whatever. Other people will, I don't know, there's so many things out there that could be used as examples, and the people who don't need people to fill their time, otherwise their days slow right down. So where I'm going with this is those people who need others to occupy their time so time can pass quicker, those people are codependent upon others, and they actually will give the person who fills their time and who doesn't have enough time, they try to give them guilt trips. Because there's a lot of times where you have friends who have a ton of time on their hands and other friends that don't, and the ones that have a lot of time are always saying to the ones that don't have any time, why don't you hang out more? Why don't you do something? And a lot of times the person who's busy or has their not enough time on their not enough time in a day, that person doesn't want to ignore these people. They're just so busy with what they're doing. Their time is already occupied, and fun, according to what the people who don't have things to occupy their time, is different than people who have stuff to occupy their time. And that's because those people who occupy their time actually do that stuff because it's fun to them. They enjoy it. And that's what's missing from the people who don't have that. And that's why they need more social type things, social events to pass their time. The reason I bring this up is because we have a problem in society, and it is the need to be socially connected. That way, more people are happy, because most people are not that introvert. Most people are not that creative. Most people do not know how to fill their time, and that's why there's television, and that's why there's movies and baseball games, and the powers that be have allowed these things to develop because they know if they don't find things to occupy the masses' time, the sheeple's time, the sheeple will get restless and they will cause trouble. So they subdue everybody through various means. Media. They've done a great job with the social media. That has not only interlocked everybody to the interweb, the internet there, but it's a way for them to keep track of how you think, what you do, what you feel, when you're home, when you're on the road, because now with the mobile devices, all those have GPS, that's all tracked, so they can find out where you're at all times. And because the majority of people are the ones that don't know how to fill their time outside of something that somebody else produces. That's the key. There are people who can produce themselves to occupy their time, and other people need things produced for them to occupy their time. Whether it means just hanging out with a friend, or going to a movie, or going to Disneyland, going to a football game, those things are designed for the people who cannot occupy their own time. Otherwise, if those things weren't there, the people would get restless, and, well, the elite do not like a restless population. And this restless thing that I'm talking about happens between friends that have that same dialectic there. The person who is so occupied, their time, there's not enough in the day, and the other person who is looking for something to occupy their time, and they rely on their friends, the people they know, to do those sort of things when they've run out of the television. And a lot of times that's funny too, because they'll get together and still occupy their time by watching a sporting event or watching a movie or watching a television show, and they won't do much else because they'll sit there quiet. But for some reason, it passes time easier that somebody else is in the room with them. So I'm lucky I don't have that. I can literally go days without speaking to anyone, not because I don't like talking to people, but because I can occupy my time. In fact, I never have enough time in the day. When I'll chill out for a little while for whatever reason, but I'll never have enough time in any day. There's usually no days where I sit around the whole day and do nothing. If that's happening, I'm probably a little ill. So anyways, I don't know how we can break that cycle in humanity, because those people who cannot occupy their own time are always going to drag and are always going to want from the people who have too little time, because they're so occupied with the things they're doing, the things they're creating. See, there's a creator class, and then there's the wanting all the stuff created for them class. And then, of course, there's the third part of the class that has the money to pay the creative class to entertain the non-creative class. And there's your little pyramid right there with the little capstone of the rich and wealthy at the top. And then, you have your foundation right below it. So music's here, folks. That means we got to go on a break.
Don't touch that dial. The John Lebang Show will be right back.
You can bet on it, man.
Hello. Are you a single lady who really wants to remain independent, but still wants the security of having a man do all the hard and nasty things you need? Then call Hubby for Hire. We're in the business of servicing you, and there's nothing we won't do. If it's just something simple as taking care of your kitty cat, or something a bit more difficult like cleaning the cobwebs that have been building up for years, it doesn't matter. Our trained professionals have the right tools for the job. Just look us up on Facebook. That's Hubby for Hire. We can fix anything. Guaranteed.
Hey, man, not a lot of people know, but after smoking a bong all day, man, I have a hard time getting an erection. Sometimes it's so limp, man, so I thought to myself, I might have that erectile dysfunction thing, man. So I called the Pen 15 Club, man. They provided me with hours of stimulation, man, with their professional massage techniques, man, and their oral support is way better than any Thai stick, man. The Pen 15 Club did the right thing for me, man. So if you're tired of having your buds killed, man, and want some help, call the Pen 15 Club, man. They can help you.
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this probably final segment of this week's 2 hours here. A couple other topics that have come across the wire that I want to talk about, and one's a little bit more serious than the other, but we'll try to get them both in here in a little bit. First one, there's talk that they're going to start, or they want to start drug testing the correspondence course, the press corps, for the White House. That was brought up by a person in the Trump organization there who's headed towards, being inaugurated soon, and I can't say I'm for that. I am not for drug testing for any reason. I don't see the purpose of it. It is at best a means of interfering in what a person does in their own private time, because if you want to smoke a joint in your private time and then you get drug tested at work and it comes back positive because 30 days ago you smoked a joint because maybe you were in Jamaica where it's legal, or maybe you were in Colorado where it was legal, and then you come home, you get that random drug test at work, you fail it because you smoked pot 30 days ago and you're fired, even though you're not high at work and you haven't smoked pot for days, and they can fire you. Well, somebody in the Trump administration is floating the idea that they may want to drug test the White House Correspondents' Corps, and I don't see that. The press corps, they don't work for the government, or they're not supposed to. See, this is an odd move, because you're telling me, I mean, corporations, they do that to their employees. I've never heard of, like, me going somewhere to film somebody, to report, maybe to report, and then I have to have a drug test to get in. What are you trying to do? So this is an odd move by whoever brought this up in the Trump administration. They better not implement this, because I think, even though I'm not a big fan of the mainstream media, I just don't think that's any business of anybody's. What you do in your private time. Now, if you're trashed at work and you fall over and you break something and you look wasted at work and you want to give somebody a drug test or an alcohol test, that's a different story. But doing something at home, and because how these drug tests work, they don't tell you if you're on it right at that moment. They just tell you if it's in your system. Well, things like marijuana, especially if you're a little heavier and have some fat content to you, which is primarily like 80% of America at this point, it's going to show up in your system whether you've smoked one joint or 1,000 joints. It's going to show up in your system. Sure, there's going to be higher concentrations if you smoke it a lot, but it doesn't matter when you're taking a drug test for these companies. If you fail, you fail, even if you're barely over. And these hair tests and all that, it's just ridiculous. So whoever came up with this idea, I just don't like the idea at all. I'm completely opposed to it. I think the Fifth Amendment protects you from this. I think it should be a law that you can't drug test, or as the person out looking for a job, if they're going to require a drug test, I think we should start charging them for our bodily fluids, for our hair, whatever. Say, okay, if you want to drug test me, it's going to cost you so much money to get these fluids out of me, because they don't own the fluids. Why can't you sell your fluids? If they require that, you should be compensated for those fluids. They don't own that body fluid. You do. Well, you're just going to pee it and flush it down the toilet. That's still your choice to flush it down the toilet. You can pee outside if you want. You might get busted. You might want to keep your pee for whatever reason. And it's not their right to just say, give me your pee, or else you can't even get a chance to have a job. They don't own you as a person. They don't own your bodily fluids. If a woman can say, I'm going to get an abortion and cannot include the father because it's her body, then the same should apply in a drug test. Excuse me, you cannot have my bodily fluids, no matter what you say about getting a job. Just doesn't happen. Now, if we want to make these drug tests so accurate that they can tell if you're high within the time period, if you got high right before work, I might be able to be a little more flexible with that. But I'm still, you're innocent until proven guilty. That's the thing we've gotten away with here in America. We've gotten away from all of that, and that's the innocent until proven guilty, which means you do not have to incriminate yourself. The person accusing you of whatever has to have the proof. They have the burden of proof, not the person who's being accused. It's not that way anymore. So in another little news story I wanted to come up with, we have this man out in England, and he has a bionic penis, and he can't wait to have sex with a robot. That's right. So he recently had an operation which cost him a whole bunch of money. It took him like 121 operations, and they gave him a bionic schmeckle. And now he was just de-virginized recently, Mr. Mohammed here. He was a virgin for 31 years. Wow, he didn't get any bedroom action at all. And now he's getting inundated with women who want to try out his 8-inch bionic schmeckle, yet his dream is to have sex with a robot. All these years, this man hasn't been able to experience sex with a woman. Now he's got a bionic wee-wee. The schmeckle is, it's the $6 million schmeckle. And all he wants to do is have sex with a robot. Why have a bionic schmeckle anyways? If you're going to have, and there's women. He's getting offers left and right for women. And that's another thing. Ladies, really, are you that eager? Are you that eager to have sex with a bionic schmeckle that you'll sleep with anybody? Go look at the picture of this guy. He's one ugly fella. Just saying. But because he's got an 8-inch bionic schmeckle, which means he could probably go for hours. Even when he ejaculates, he probably can still go and it stays nice and hard. From what I hear, that's not a typical thing with guys. Usually, I guess they go limp after the fact. But Schmeckle Man over here, the bionic Schmeckle, he wants to have sex with a robot instead of women. And there are tons of women out there who are actually wanting to have sex with this guy. Because they want to try out his schmeckle. They don't care about him. So that's, I guess, where guys are at. Either you got to have yourself a schmeckle that can go forever, so that way women are happy and enjoyed, and are taken care of nicely, or you got to have lots of money. And Schmeckle Man over here, the bionic schmeckle, that's what we're going to call this guy, the bionic schmeckle. This guy is going to wait. That's what he's saying. He's going to wait a year to have till there's a bionic robot a robot available to have sex with. Even though he's got women throwing themselves at him. He says he works a lot. He works a lot. 9 o'clock at night he comes home. There are women throwing yourself at you, dude. You're not that handsome. I've seen your picture. Just do it with the women. Why is it okay to have sex with a robot? I just don't. Is it okay? I don't see it. I mean, I think women themselves probably are more inclined to do that than men because they're more inclined to use vibrators, which is a prototype, which is an early version, in my opinion, of a robot. So now you're going to have Bionic Man here, the Bionic Schmeckle. He can please all kinds of women, and obviously these women don't care if he's sleeping around because they're all offering it. Makes you wonder about women, don't you, guys? That they'd be willing to just go bang a guy who got a bionic schmeckle just to try it out. Just to try it out. They have no interest in the guy. It doesn't matter what he looks like. All they want to do is test out the bionic schmeckle. I mean, there might be a joke in there, but I'm not. I find it strange and odd. I'm even having a hard time putting my words together for it. Stringing a sentence together is hard when you're talking about this sort of thing because it's way beyond my. I like the soft touch of a woman, okay, and I like to have some kind of connection. Random sex is okay, but for Bionic Man, he can have all the sex he wants from all different types of women he wants. All he has to do is say, here's my 8-inch bionic schmeckle, come and get it, and women are going to come running, and he's going to turn him down because he wants to wait till there's a robot available. I mean, we're just a bunch of weird people on this planet. Strange stuff. I don't get it. So, would you have sex? Here's a question for the night. Would you have sex with a robot? Let me know in the comment section below or the chat room there. And, yeah.
Spurs and grab on to that twister. Get up on that pony. Get up and let's ride. Get up on that pony. And go for a ride. Get up on that pony. Get up and let's ride. Get up on that pony. And go for a ride. Baby, back's time to sizzle. Blowing steam like a hot train whistle. Fast time to shoot. Tough as crystal like trying to bridle a tomahawk missile. No time to talk. We'll keep on trucking from town to town. We'll keep on. It's an overload and we're ready to blow. And this is the way we like to rodeo. Yeah. Get up on that pony. Get up and let's ride. Get up on that pony. And go for a ride. Get up on that pony. Get up and let's ride. Get up on that pony. And go for a ride. Now that we know the way the wind's blowing, it's on the saddle with everything showing. It's really got juices going, but I ain't got time before we go. Giddy up, ho, it's time to get going. Back on the road, now we know it's over now, and we're ready to roll. And this is the way we like to rodeo. Yeah!
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for yet another 60-minute excursion into the John Lebang Show. I'd like to thank everybody who stopped in, all my affiliate stations. Please don't forget to go to my website. That's www.jlebang.com. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, this is John Lebang. I am signing off.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.